My name is Tasha Monroe, and I'm 34 years old, living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I never thought one phone call would break the spine of my family tree. But when my 7-year-old son came home with belt marks on his back, crying, shaking, and the one who did it was my sister, what shattered me most wasn't the whipping. It was what my parents said after. It started on a Tuesday afternoon. I had just finished a long shift at the hospital, 12 hours on my feet, saving lives. I'm a trauma nurse. Ironically, the biggest trauma I'd face wasn't in the ER. I picked up my son, Miles, from my sister Kendra's house. She had agreed to babysit for a few hours. When I rang the bell, he opened the door with wet cheeks and swollen eyes. And that's when I saw it. 3 angry welts trailing across his arm, another wrapping around his side. "Who did this to you?" I asked, heart slamming against my ribs. He looked down. Aunt Kendra said I was being bad. I spilled juice on her laptop. And just like that, my entire body caught fire. I stormed inside. "Kendra," I shouted, scanning the living room. She came out casually, holding a wine glass, like nothing had happened. "You beat my son with a belt." She rolled her eyes. "He was being disrespectful, Tasha. Somebody has to discipline him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Discipline? You left bruises. You whipped him." And she shot back. "You were raised the same way. Don't act brand new." That's when I lost it. "You're not his mother. You don't get to decide how he's punished." She walked right past me. "You're raising him soft. That boy needs structure, not timeouts and hugs." I wrapped my arms around Miles, trembling with rage. "We're leaving." "I already told Mom and Dad," Kendra called out as I left. "They agree with me." That night, I sat on my couch, Miles asleep in my arms, his skin still red where her belt had found him. My phone rang. "Dad." "Tasha, don't blow this out of proportion," he said calmly. "She beat your grandson, Dad." "She disciplined him." "No, I discipline him. I'm his mother." "She had no right. She did what she thought was best." Family comes first, Tasha. Don't throw away blood over a mistake. Blood. Blood over bruises. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You're defending her, not even asking if your grandson is okay?" "He's fine. Stop being dramatic." I hung up. That night, I cried so hard I thought I'd choke on it. Not just because of Kendra or even Dad's betrayal, but because in that moment I realized my parents had chosen sides. And it wasn't mine. The next morning, I filed a report with Child Protective Services. I didn't want to, but I had to. CPS came to my door, took photos of Miles' back, his side. They asked him gentle questions, gave him toys to play with while I filled out forms with trembling hands. Later that day, my mother showed up uninvited. "How dare you drag this family's name through the mud," she hissed. "Your daughter beat my child," I said through clenched teeth. "She's your sister. You think calling the state on her will fix this?" "No. I think it will protect my son." "You're breaking this family apart," she whispered. "No," I said. "You did that the moment you defended a child abuser." Her eyes narrowed. "You've always been jealous of Kendra. Now you're trying to destroy her." That broke me. I laughed bitterly. "Jealous? Of what? Your golden child who still lives in your basement, drinks wine at noon, and beats children when they spill juice." That slap stung more than any belt ever could. She walked out. I locked the door behind her. The fallout was nuclear. Calls from uncles. Angry texts from cousins. A family group chat exploded with messages saying I was ungrateful, disrespectful, and overreacting. Only one person defended me, Aunt Janice, my mother's estranged sister. "She's doing the right thing," she typed. "Y'all are the ones who should be ashamed." They kicked her out of the chat, just like they were kicking me out of the family. But I stood my ground. Then came the kicker. 2 weeks later, I got served. Kendra filed for emergency visitation rights, with my parents backing her, claiming I was emotionally unstable and vindictive. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't eat. I lost 7 pounds in 4 days. I wasn't just fighting for custody now. I was fighting for my son's safety. and the courtroom became my battlefield. The judge looked stern. Ms. Monroe, why did you involve CPS? I slid the photos of Miles' injuries across the table. This is why. Kendra's lawyer tried to say the marks were accidental or exaggerated. But Miles' voice rang out from the witness room, clear and strong. She hit me with a belt, because I spilled juice. The room fell silent. I watched Kendra's face collapse. The judge denied her visitation. Permanently. Justice at last. But the scars on my heart? They were still fresh. Still bleeding. Weeks later, I got a letter. Not from the court. Not from CPS. From my father. 1 page. Handwritten. We didn't raise you to be this cold. You've turned your back on your sister. On us. I hope one day you look back and realize the damage you caused. Until then, don't come around. Family comes first. That night, I tucked Miles into bed and kissed his forehead. Then I burned the letter. Because family isn't about blood. It's about who protects you when the fire comes. And when it did, they let us burn. I didn't cry when I burned my father's letter. But I did when Miles asked me the next morning, Mom, why doesn't Grandma love me? That question splintered something inside me. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I did. And it was too ugly for a child to hear. Instead, I crouched in front of him, brushing his curls back from his forehead. She loves you, baby, I lied. She just doesn't know how to show it. But deep down, I knew the truth. My parents never really saw Miles. Not as a child with feelings. Not as my son. They saw him as an extension of me, and I had stopped fitting into their perfect Monroe family picture the moment I filed that CPS report. By that Friday, the whispers had turned to roars. At work, one of my coworkers, Camille, pulled me aside. Tasha, is it true what your family's saying? That you're trying to ruin your sister's life over a misunderstanding? I froze. They came here? Not directly. But Kendra's friend Natalie came in for a sprain, and she was loud. I forced a smile, but my hands were shaking. Kendra was smearing my name at my job, and my parents were backing her, calling it damage control. The golden daughter had a mask, and she was doing everything to make me look like the villain. So I decided to rip that mask off. I called Aunt Janice. She picked up on the second ring. Tasha, I need help. She didn't hesitate. Say the word. I met Janice at a small cafe near campus, a quiet spot far from Monroe family years. She had always been the outcast, divorced young, moved to New York, wore red lipstick at Sunday dinners, and told uncomfortable truths. You know what your problem is? She said, sliding me a black folder. You've been fighting fire with hope. These people are flamethrowers. It's time you got your own matches. I opened the folder. Inside were screenshots, statements, and court files. Kendra's not the saint your parents pretend she is, Janice said calmly. DUIs, eviction notices, therapy mandates from anger management court. She had a record, Tasha. They just buried it. My heart pounded. You knew all this? I tried to tell your mother. Years ago. She cut me off. I flipped through the pages. One police report stood out. 2 years ago, Kendra's ex-boyfriend filed a complaint for violent outbursts. She had allegedly broken his nose with a wine bottle. This never came up during the custody hearing, I said. They lied by omission. But now that the case is closed, you can protect yourself from future attacks. I stared at my aunt. She had done what no one else in my family did. She believed me, and she acted. And just like that, something inside me began to awaken. The part of me that wasn't just a mother or a nurse. The part of me that had been forged by betrayal and now wanted justice. Later that week, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. And it was Kendra. Are you happy now? She hissed before I could speak. You ruined my reputation. My job fired me because of the CPS report. You humiliated me. You whipped my son, Kendra. He spilled juice. You act like I stabbed him. You left marks on a child that wasn't yours. There are consequences. She laughed bitterly. Don't act like you're better than me. You think I don't know how jealous you've always been. Jealous. I repeated.
Yeah.
Dad always gave me more.
Mom always defended me.
You hated that. She wasn't wrong. I had hated it. But not because I was jealous. Because it was wrong. Because the sister who always got away with everything now believed she had the right to hurt someone else's child, and get away with that too. You're right, I said slowly. They always defended you. And look how you turned out. Then I hung up. I blocked her number. And then I sent the court files Janice gave me to the CPS caseworker. Because Kendra wasn't just dangerous. She was protected by enablers. And that ended now. The next blow came from the last person I expected. My father. He showed up at my door at 6:45 a.m. on a Saturday. I was in my robe, coffee in hand, Miles still asleep. Tasha, he said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I don't have anything to say to you. He looked older than I remembered, like the weight of his choices was finally aging him. I came to apologize, he said. I crossed my arms. To me or to Miles?
To you.
I wasn't thinking clearly. I let your mother's emotions cloud my judgment. I stared at him, waiting. I should have protected you. I should have protected him. I wanted to believe him. I wanted that moment to matter. But I couldn't forget the letter. Do you know what your grandson asked me last week? I said. He asked why you don't love him. My father's face crumpled. I do. Then act like it. Show up for him. Not for Kendra. Not for family pride. He looked at the ground. I want to fix this. I softened. A little. Then come inside, I said. He's still sleeping. But he'd be happy to see you. He stepped in. That morning, for the first time in weeks, Miles laughed. He sat on Grandpa's lap and told him all about dinosaurs and superheroes and his dream of becoming a zookeeper. And for a moment, I believed maybe things could get better. Maybe. Until the next letter arrived. This time from a lawyer. Kendra had filed an appeal. She was trying to overturn the judge's ruling. She had hired a new attorney, one with media contacts. The letter threatened to reveal character inconsistencies if I didn't drop the CPS involvement. She was trying to blackmail me. The Golden Daughter's mask wasn't just cracking. It was shattering. And what lay beneath it was rage. But I was ready now. I had copies of her sealed police records. I had statements from her ex. I had Aunt Janice's testimony. And this time, I wasn't just playing defense. I had learned how to swing back. Because the truth is, sometimes blood is poison. And the only cure is exposing it. There's something about betrayal that doesn't just hurt. It rewrites your memory. Suddenly, every smile you once believed in feels like a mask. Every hug, a setup. Every I love you sounds like a trick. That's what happened after Kendra filed the appeal. I stopped remembering birthdays and Christmases. All I could remember was the belt marks on my son's back and how my parents called it discipline. It wasn't just about the whipping anymore. It was about the web they wove. Every cover-up, every lie, every time they gaslit me into silence. And now they were helping Kendra try to erase the judge's ruling, claiming I was unstable. That I was the danger. But this time, I wasn't walking into court with hope in my hands. I was walking in with evidence. And I had names. It started with a knock on my door at 8:30 a.m. sharp. My attorney, Melissa Gaines, armed with a folder thick enough to break bones. I've never seen a family this invested in burying truth, she said, flipping through pages. Welcome to the Monroes, I said dryly. She handed me a document, an official court submission from Kendra's new attorney. My jaw clenched as I read the claims. Ms. Monroe has a pattern of emotional instability, impulsive decisions, and obsessive protective behavior that creates an unsafe environment for her child. Her sister, Ms. Kendra Monroe, acted in Miles' best interest when she intervened. They were painting me as unfit, hysterical, dangerous. But Melissa had her weapons ready. We'll respond with the prior police reports, psychological evaluations from Kendra's probation officer, and sworn testimony from Aunt Janice. We're also going to subpoena your sister's former employer and her ex-boyfriend. You really think he'll testify? I asked. Melissa smirked. He already agreed. Said, and I quote, "It's about time someone made her pay." I looked down at my hands. They weren't shaking. For the first time in months, I felt steady, focused, and furious. 3 days before the hearing, my mother called. Blocked number. I picked up anyway. "Tasha," she said softly, her voice like stale perfume, sweet but suffocating. "I don't want to hear it," I said. "Just listen. Please. You're going too far. You're about to destroy this family."
No.
Kendra did that when she hurt my son. You did that when you stood beside her. Do you want Miles to grow up without grandparents? Without cousins? You're isolating him. I stared out the window. No, you isolated him when you turned your back on him. And now you're afraid of the truth. There was a long pause. Then her voice shifted, cold and clipped. You always were dramatic.
Click.
She hung up. And just like that, I knew. If there was a line between protecting peace and protecting my son, I would cross it. Again.
And again.
And again. The day of the appeal hearing arrived like a storm. Rain poured down as we entered the courthouse. Melissa clutched her umbrella like a sword. I held my bag tightly, the folder inside containing my entire defense, the proof of who Kendra really was. We walked into the courtroom. Kendra was already seated with her lawyer, dressed in an expensive beige suit, her makeup flawless, her expression innocent. She gave me a smug glance. I didn't blink. The judge, a woman named Honorable Deborah Winters, entered. Firm, sharp-eyed, not easily swayed. The hearing began. Kendra's lawyer went first, pacing theatrically. Your Honor, my client has been wrongly vilified. She only intervened to correct behavior when the child, Miles, displayed repeated outbursts in her care. Ms. Monroe, Tasha, has a history of overreacting and emotionally unstable behavior. We believe her actions stem from a deep-seated resentment toward her sister. Melissa stood, voice calm and icy. Your Honor, we object to this language. We're here to assess facts, not wild character speculation. The judge nodded. Sustained. Move on. Then Melissa brought the storm. She handed over police reports, probation documents, testimonies, photos. She has 2 prior assault charges, both dismissed, but 1 mandated anger management classes. She was evicted from her apartment after multiple complaints of loud, violent arguments. She lost her job after bringing wine into a children's tutoring session. This is not a woman acting in a child's best interest. Then Aunt Janice stood up. She had been subpoenaed as a character witness. Your Honor, I've known Tasha her whole life. She's a good mother, a fierce one, maybe too forgiving. But what happened to her son wasn't discipline, it was abuse. I saw the marks. I saw the pain. And I saw the cover-up. When Kendra's lawyer cross-examined Janice and tried to paint her as a bitter aunt, Janice looked him square in the eye and said, I may be bitter, sir, but I'm not a liar. The courtroom was dead silent. Then came the twist. Melissa called Jordan Marks, Kendra's ex-boyfriend, to the stand. I had no idea what he'd say. I hadn't seen him in over a year. He adjusted his blazer, cleared his throat, and looked directly at Kendra. She threw a wine bottle at me, missed my head by an inch. She screamed for an hour because I didn't respond to her texts fast enough. I stayed quiet back then because, Your Honor, I didn't want trouble. But if she can do that to an adult, I don't want to imagine what she could do to a child who can't defend himself. The judge scribbled notes. Her lips were tight. She didn't look pleased. Finally, I was called. I stood. Every eye in the room on me. Why did you go to Child Protective Services? The judge asked. I didn't tremble. I didn't do it to hurt my sister. I did it because I saw bruises on my son's body. Not one. Multiple. And when I confronted my family, they told me, family comes first. As if that justifies abuse. I paused. My son is 7. He's kind, gentle, sensitive. I'm teaching him that love doesn't mean pain. That family isn't allowed to hurt you without consequence. And if protecting him makes me the villain of this story, Then so be it. The judge sat back. Quiet. I'll review all evidence and issue a ruling in 72 hours, she said. The next 3 days were torture. Every knock made my stomach clench. Every ring made my hands sweat. But then the ruling arrived. I opened the letter slowly. Appeal denied. Full custody and sole parental decision-making rights remain with Ms. Tasha Monroe. The court further orders a permanent restraining order against Ms. Kendra Monroe until further notice. Any attempt to contact or approach Miles Monroe will be considered a criminal violation. I read it twice. Then I laughed. Then I cried. Miles was playing on the rug, building Legos. I knelt beside him. You're safe now, I whispered. He looked up, wide-eyed. I wasn't safe before. And there it was, that tiny fracture in his trust. That invisible scar. I hugged him tighter than I ever had before. No, baby, I said, voice thick. But now, I promise, no one's going to hurt you again. Not even if they share our blood. Peace doesn't come with court rulings. It comes in fragments, silent mornings, Miles' laughter echoing through the hallways, coffee that doesn't go cold from stress. But it never arrives whole. Not when your scars were the same last name as your abuser. 3 months after the court denied Kendra's appeal, life was starting to feel survivable. Not perfect, but steady. Miles slept without nightmares. I stopped checking the locks 3 times at night. We were healing, inch by inch, until the phone rang at 4:42 a.m. on a rainy Thursday. I didn't answer right away. Only bad news ever came that early. A few seconds later, a text flashed on my screen from Aunt Janice. Tasha, it's your father.
He's gone.
Heart attack. I'm so sorry. I sat up, heartbeat thundering in my ears. Gone? Just like that? The man who had once called me his first little princess before writing me off as cold and disloyal was gone? I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I was sad, but because I didn't know how to feel. Then another message came through. From my mother. A number I hadn't seen since the day she hung up on me. Your father's funeral is Saturday, 11 a.m. We expect you and Miles to attend. No drama. Family comes first. Family comes first. Even in death, they were still using that line like a leash. I didn't want to go. I had every reason to stay away. But Miles deserved to say goodbye to the man who once built him a treehouse and taught him how to whistle. Despite everything, there were memories he still cherished. And maybe I needed a final page too. Not for my father, but for myself. So, we went. The funeral was held at Shady Grove Baptist Church, the same place my parents renewed their vows when I was 15. Kendra stood near the casket like a grieving widow, dressed in all black, fake tears staining her cheeks. When I walked in with Miles, the room froze. Eyes turned. Whispers rippled like wind through a wheat field. Some people nodded politely. Others looked through me like I didn't exist. Kendra spotted us and stiffened, her jaw tightening. My mother? Didn't even blink. She stood beside the pulpit with her arms crossed, cold as stone. Aunt Janice came to our side, kissed my cheek, and held my hand tightly. Whatever happens in there, she whispered, you've already won the only war that matters, protecting your son. I nodded, but nothing prepared me for what came next. The service started predictably, soft hymns, tearful prayers, a few fond memories shared by old co-workers and neighbors. Then my mother stepped to the podium. Her voice was brittle, rehearsed. Charles Monroe was a man of integrity. A father who loved fiercely. A husband who led this family with discipline and wisdom. He taught us that family means loyalty, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She glanced at me. Everyone did. My stomach twisted. And though this family has seen conflict, she continued, we must remember what he always said. Blood is thicker than hurt. I felt Miles reach for my hand. I squeezed his gently. But the next part? That's what broke me. Kendra, darling, my mother said, motioning her forward. He was so proud of you. Your strength. Your courage. How you endured betrayal and stood tall. Betrayal? The crowd clapped lightly as Kendra stepped up beside her. My face flushed.
Hot.
Stinging. I stood, quietly, and walked out. Outside, the sky had darkened. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Miles followed me, confused. Mom, why did we leave? Because baby, I said, holding back tears. Sometimes, even at a funeral, people try to bury the truth right along with the body. He looked up. Will Grandpa still love me in heaven? My throat tightened. If he saw how brave you've been, I think he'd be proud. He nodded solemnly and hugged me. And just as I bent to kiss his forehead, a voice sliced through the silence behind us. You had no right walking out like that. I turned. It was Kendra. Face flushed, jaw locked, voice like venom. This was Dad's day, Tasha. Not your little drama parade. I stepped in front of Miles. Keep your voice down. You're pathetic, she hissed. You stole his final months from him. You poisoned him against us, against me. You beat my son, I said slowly. You made that choice. Not me. I corrected him. You made it a crime. You ruined this family with your obsession for control. No, I whispered. I ended the cycle. Kendra's eyes flickered. A crack. Then a full break. You think you won? She spat. Mom's rewriting the story now. In a year, no one will even remember what you did. They'll just remember you left your father. I smiled. Not out of joy, but clarity. I don't care how they rewrite the story, I said. Because the real one, the one that matters, I live it every day. And so does Miles. Then I turned my back to her and walked away. That night, I lit a candle for my father. Not because I missed him, but because I was finally ready to mourn the version of him I had loved, the one who told bedtime stories and carried me on his shoulders. Not the man who chose silence over justice. Not the one who wrote me out of his heart with a pen dipped in guilt and pride. That version had died long before his heart stopped. And for the first time, I allowed myself to bury him. Not with bitterness, but peace. 2 weeks after the funeral, the house finally felt still. No more messages. No more lawyers. No more Kendra. Just peace, and the weight of everything she and my parents had tried to bury. I was folding laundry while Miles played quietly in the living room when a knock echoed through the house. Not urgent, just unsure. I opened the door to find Aunt Janice, holding a plain brown envelope. Her eyes were swollen, like she'd been crying. This came in the mail today, she said softly. From a safety deposit box your father kept in his name. I'm the executor. He left this for you. I stared at the envelope in her hand like it was radioactive. I didn't move. I can take it back, she offered gently. You don't have to read it, but I did. Because the truth has teeth, even when it's wrapped in paper. And I was finally strong enough to face it. I opened the envelope after Miles had gone to bed. It held a single sheet of stationery, written in my father's bold, blocky handwriting. No, dear Tasha. Just words. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. There are things I never said that I should have. And things I said that I wish I could take back. When Kendra hurt Miles, I froze. Not because I didn't care, but because it felt familiar. Your mother used to discipline you girls like that. I never questioned it. I told myself it was normal. But when I saw the photos you sent of Miles' back, I realized I had allowed that same cycle to pass to another generation. I failed you. And him. The worst part is I knew you were right. I just didn't want to admit it. Because if I did, I'd have to admit that I failed as a father. I chose peace over truth. Image over action. I defended Kendra because it was easier to believe she was still my little girl, innocent and misunderstood. But she isn't. And she hasn't been for a long time. You weren't cold. You were brave. And I was too much of a coward to stand beside you. I hope one day Miles understands why I wasn't there. I hope you can forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. You're a better parent than I ever was. And I'm proud of you.
Dad.
I stared at the page until the ink blurred through my tears. He knew. He had known. He just couldn't say it out loud until he was gone. I sat in the kitchen for hours, rereading that letter until the words imprinted on my heart. He failed me, but he knew he failed me. And somehow, that small acknowledgement unlocked something in me I hadn't felt since all this began. Closure. The next morning, I took Miles to the park. He ran ahead of me, chasing butterflies and laughing, his joy effortless and wide like sunlight after a storm. A stranger might never know that this little boy once cried himself to sleep for weeks, or that he had been the reason a family tree finally cracked down the middle. He was resilient, and so was I. As I sat on the bench, I watched him climb the jungle gym, confident, unafraid, free. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You may have won custody, but you'll never be family again. Enjoy your little victory. I didn't need to guess. It was Kendra. And, for the first time, I felt nothing. No rage. No fear. No sadness. Just freedom. I deleted the message without responding. Because some people don't deserve closure. And I didn't need her apology to move forward. I already had mine. Later that night, I framed my father's letter. Not as a token of love, but as a symbol of truth. I placed it in my bedroom, beside a photo of Miles and me at the beach, the day the court ruling came in. The day we finally felt safe. That letter was proof that even the ones who failed us can still admit they were wrong. That silence, when broken, can still bring healing, even if it comes too late. It didn't excuse what happened, but it made space for peace. A month later, I launched a local support group for single mothers navigating family betrayal. We met twice a month in the church basement across town, ironically, not far from where my father's funeral was held. We called it Bloodline Breakers. Women shared their stories over paper cups of coffee and tear-soaked tissues. One woman had been sued by her own brother over her house after she refused to co-sign his third bankruptcy. Another had watched her mother testify in favor of her abusive ex in a custody case. Pain isn't unique, but healing? That takes community. And together, we rebuilt each other. One day, Miles came home with a drawing from school. Crayons scribbled everywhere. It showed me with a superhero cape and him holding a little gold star. He called it the day my mom saved me. I held it like scripture. Framed it right next to my father's letter. Because both were true. My father's silence hurt me, but my son's voice healed me. And that voice, that bright, unshaken, fearless voice, would never again be drowned by bloodlines or guilt. So, if you're reading this, if you've been told to keep the peace, to protect the family name, to forgive without justice, let me say this. You're allowed to speak. You're allowed to protect. You're allowed to walk away from people who share your DNA, but not your values. And if they ever ask why you did it, tell them. Because my child deserves a better legacy than silence.